morning. Welcome once again to Community Christians Church. I'm Adam. I'm one of the ministers around here. Happy Father's Day again to all you dads out there. I hope you feel especially valued and respected today. Hey, maybe you can head home, sneak in a nap. It could be a really, really great day. I'm curious. I was thinking about when I was a kid, which is basically the number one prerequisite for celebrating Father's Day. You have to have a kid. So I was thinking about being a kid, and I did a lot of babysitting. I'm the oldest of 5. How many here, you have babysat? People have paid you money to watch their kids before, right? Anyone, you do that now, like you earn money now? Hey, if you're a parent looking, there you go. There you go. You're welcome. My fee is very small. Don't worry about it. I remember babysitting one time, and we had some basic rules, like no marks on people or things. You can watch whatever you want, eat whatever you want. I'll make dinner. We'll put the house back together, and we'll have a great day. This can be a win-win for everybody. And it was going well this one Saturday, and we showed up for dinner, and someone prayed for dinner. And then my sister said, "Where's Alex?" And we realized that no one had seen my 5-year-old brother for a long time, and we panicked. And so we start searching, knocking on doors of neighbors and going all over the place. And we were quite relieved when I finally found him, which was great for me because I knew I am going to get in very big trouble. Losing a sibling while you're babysitting is very frowned upon. And so I know I'm in for it. And I found him. It was good for me, but sad for him because he was in his bedroom and he was trapped between his bed and the wall. And I looked at him there and I said, "Alex, what are you doing?" And he said, "I got stuck," which, I could see. And I said, "Dude, how long have you been here?" And Alex told me, "What time is it?" Which is a bad response. What time is it is not what you're looking for. And my poor little brother had been stuck there all day. He deserved so much better childcare than what I provided. And thankfully, he survived my babysitting career, and he is mostly fine as little brothers who are forgotten about and trapped in their room for hours can turn out. He's doing great with that. And I bring up this story because in the Bible, there's another story about another 5-year-old kid that didn't get the care that he deserved either, only his story is not funny. It's actually pretty sad and heartbreaking. It's kind of brutal. It's about a guy called Mephibosheth, and his story is so important for us to look at today because his life and his story, it cuts right to the heart with what we're faced with day in and day out. What happens when things go wrong? What do we do with that? And more importantly, where is God in the midst of that? How do we reconcile our view of God when bad things happen, when people don't get what they deserve? Well, this guy Mephibosheth, his story, it gets at this. And it's brief. It only shows up in about 3 or 4 pages in the whole Bible, but it's very powerful. And it starts in the Bible in the book of 2 Samuel chapter 4. If you want to read along, or the words will be up on the screen. Here's what it says. Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. So Saul is his grandfather. He's the king of Israel. And his father, Jonathan, they're in battle, and they're killed in battle. That's the news that's being delivered. And when that happens, his nurse picked him up and fled. But as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. And that is hard to read. He's just a kid, and his nurse drops him. He deserved better, right? It's just sad. This is the world we live in. It's the same old story. Bad things happen. Things happen that people don't deserve. Sometimes we make bad choices. Sometimes we mess up or we do it to ourselves. We don't take responsibility for things. And then something bad happens. That's different. Those are called consequences. This is not about consequences for him. It's not his fault at all. His caretaker is trying to help him, and there's a horrible accident. It goes horribly wrong, and he's dealt a really tough hand. Think about what this would have meant for his life. In much of the ancient world, when someone was disabled, people looked down on them. They thought they must have sinned. They must have done something that made God mad at them or something. Disability back then, it was often connected with shame and sin and divine punishment. People assumed they must have done something wrong. They did it to themselves. I think we can still wrestle with that kind of thinking. When something painful happens, a lot of us wonder, is God punishing me? This view of God, it's so easy to adopt, and it can shape so much of our lives. The way we see God matters so much. Think about it like this. I got new glasses last week. My doctor finally moved me in to progressives. So I've crossed that line. I'm old now. And apparently it takes a couple weeks for your eyes to adjust. So this is a little crazy up here. So if something wild happens, that's what's going on. But the funny thing is, I didn't realize how badly I needed them. I had just started adapting and adjusting, squinting a little bit more, holding things at just the right distance while I'm using the magnifying glass on my app and blaming the lighting in the restaurant, that sort of thing. And then I put on the right prescription, and oh my, everything got so crisp. I could finally see, no wonder my wife's been telling me to change. This outfit doesn't work. It all makes sense now. I think we do the same thing with God. A lot of times we're looking through him through a scratched up, bad prescription. We see him through our disappointment, our pain. We see him through the worst assumptions people have handed us. So of course, when something happens, we just assume God must be punishing me. God must be against me. When life drops us, we assume it's God who's dropped us. But what if that lens is all wrong? There are plenty of times life gives us what we don't deserve, but does that mean God's turned on us? Does that mean our value has changed, that now we're shameful or less valuable because of what's happened to us? You see, and this is huge for Mephibosheth. The Bible insists on a very deep truth. The Bible says every person bears the image of God. You, me, everyone you love, everyone that drives you nuts, every person reflects and is imprinted with the image of our Creator. It gives us such tremendous worth. In Mephibosheth's body, it's been wounded, but his worth has not been diminished. We all have different hurts and wounds we've experienced and lived through. And if you're like me, that stuff starts to surface right about now in his story. I think we can identify with him right here. He was a real person in a real place, living a real life that didn't go the way he deserved. And I think we can connect with him in that pain. He didn't just lose his ability to walk. He lost his father, his grandfather, his home, safety, status, all taken from him. He lost the future that he had. In one day, everything changed. He was 5 years old, dropped by life. That's how Mephibosheth's story starts, but it is not how it ends. Check out what happens. Years pass, and we don't really hear about him again for some time until a guy called David becomes king of Israel. And he is the David from the Bible, very famous figure. He's the one who defeated Goliath. He ran from Saul. He waited on the Lord. He was eventually given the throne of Israel. He is one of the main characters in God's story. And after he became king, he asked a question that changed everything for Mephibosheth. David asked, "Is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake. God had anointed David king. He is the top dog now. All the power, all the security, all the authority. So what's the first thing he does now that he's king? He goes looking for someone he can be gracious with. That is not the first question most people ask when they take over, is it? I mean, we get this. When there's someone new in charge, they usually think, who are my friends? Who are my enemies? Most people ask, who helped me? Who hurt me? Who was against me? Who do I need to watch out for? That's how power works in the world. It keeps score. It's self-serving. It protects itself at all costs. You even see this in families. Sometimes when someone gets the upper hand, they think, now I can prove my point. Now I can make them feel how they've made me feel. Now I can make sure they know I was right all along. But that's not what David does. He asks a different question. Is there anyone to whom I can show kindness? And that question, it cuts across the grain of how the world works. We got to understand this about the story. David is showing us something much bigger than how our world does things. Don't miss this. Because that word for kindness in the Bible, that word is hesed. It's a Hebrew word. And it's a really, really big word. And there's not one single word we can translate it into English. So we get groups of words to help us understand it. Groups like steadfast love or covenant love or maybe loving kindness, those sorts of things. Hesed is love that doesn't change when our circumstances change. Hesed isn't fickle or up and down. It's so much bigger than any kind of convenience or what can someone give back to me. Hesed is steady, committed. It's the kind of love we're trying to express in a wedding when we promise for better or worse, richer or poor, in sickness and health till death do we part. It is not fair weather love, not at all. I mean, what good is fair weather love? Think about fair weather for a second. Anything described fair weather is bad, especially fans. I mean, you know how that goes. The Orioles start winning a little bit. Gunnar hits his 100th home run. The polar bear starts heating up. Rogers throws a gem last night, and all of a sudden, people start putting their O's hats on. They start wearing jerseys again. They start showing up at the game. And if you're someone that hasn't gone away, that's loved the Orioles through it all, you're like, hey, you're in my seat. Move it, you know? Hesed is the kind of love that says, I'm not going anywhere just because this got hard. Some say it should be translated grace. Is there anyone left to whom I can show grace? Do you see what David's doing here? He is showing the same loving kindness God himself shows. Grace. Love that we don't deserve. And don't miss the way David asked the question. He doesn't ask, is there anyone worthy? He doesn't say, is there anyone qualified or anyone that can help me back? He simply says, is there anyone? That's grace. It doesn't begin with the worthiness of the person receiving it. It starts in the heart of the giver. Grace is one-sided. It gives before there's any guarantee of a response. It's exactly how God treats us. David settles in to do the work of actually being king, and the first thing he does is go looking for someone to bless. He starts with hesed, with love, with kindness, with grace. And so the way he does it is he calls one of Saul's former servants, a guy called Ziba, and he asks, is there anyone left from Saul's family? And Ziba answers the king, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet. The answer is yes. There just so happens to be one person, Mephibosheth. And David asks, where is he? That is so great. David is showing us here, check this out. He's teaching us that grace doesn't feel sorry from a distance. Grace moves towards people. It goes looking. It takes the initiative. Grace asks, where? Where is he? He is serious about finding someone to express the hesed in his heart. He goes looking. And eventually, that news gets to Mephibosheth. And try to put yourself in this guy's shoes just for a second. He's been living in a place called Lo-Debar, which translates literally wasteland. That's where he's been living. He moved from the palace to right smack dab into downtown Pittsburgh. And he... Too soon? Training camp starts soon, I figured. Mephibosheth is so far from the life that he would have had. And he's been living there for years with this pain of what happened to him, with the shame of how people see him. Not to mention, he is the only living relative from the former king. And now a messenger shows up from the current king and says, hey, guess what? The new king wants to get together. What do you think is going on in his mind? Kings are not known for looking for old family members so they can bless them. They go looking for old family members to get rid of them. And so he's brought to David, and he has every reason to be afraid. I would be afraid too. I think you would. Verse 6 says, when he gets there, when Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. He has no idea what's about to happen because the king speaks. And the first recorded words of David are his name, Mephibosheth. I think that matters. It is such a glimpse into the posture of David's heart. Mephibosheth could have been reduced to all kinds of things. He could have been reduced to a threat or a disability, a royal liability, a burden, a problem, a charity case. But David called him by name. Understand this now. He called him by name because grace sees a person before it sees a problem. David is giving us a master class on grace. He is modeling what it's all about, getting what you don't deserve. And this is important for us because we can't love in general. We can be theoretical about love and we can think about it and we can love the idea of being loving. We can even think that we are loving, but actual love gets specific. Real love has a name. It's easy to say, I care about hurting people. It's much more difficult to actually care about the hurting people in your life. And David says, Mephibosheth. There is just something powerful about a father figure calling a child by name with love in his voice. A way of saying, I see you. I care. You matter to me. I think one of the things that happens when life lets us down is it tries to rename us. It tries to give us another name by what happened. It doesn't use our name. It starts calling us something else. So instead, we become divorced. Our name changes to addict or damaged. Something happens and we start answering to failure, disappointment, not enough. Other people may have called you those things. You may have called yourself some of those things. But that's not what David calls Mephibosheth. He calls him by name, and some of us know the difference between being called by name and called a label. Our Father does not define us by what happened to us and what we lost or what we did or what other people think of us and call us. He calls his children by name. He sees the person beneath the pain. He sees his son. He sees his daughter. And that's what David sees when he looks at Mephibosheth. He sees the person. He uses his name. And even though this moment is so tender, even though it's like so reassuring and loaded with so much potential for transformation, it's loaded with goodness, that doesn't mean that Mephibosheth is ready to receive it. It doesn't mean that he feels it yet, not even close. He's bowed down and he is terrified. He's still scared. And so David goes even further. He speaks the words every scared person needs to hear. Don't be afraid. Mephibosheth needed to hear that. He came into that room thinking, this is where my story ends. Life's been nothing but hard, and now it's going to be taken from me like everything else. It's kind of like being called into the principal's office when you're a kid. Nobody hears, the principal wants to see you, and starts thinking, this is probably about that scholarship. You just start going through that list of all the stuff you did wrong, unless you're like one of the really good ones. For the rest of us, that's how it goes. Or you get that text message, we need to talk. You're like, great, I've been looking forward to that. You start thinking, oh no, what could this be about? That's the script that's going on in Mephibosheth's head. Fear has already decided what's going to happen. It's already written the story. But David flips the script. Don't be afraid. Mephibosheth expected judgment, but he received grace. He got what he didn't deserve. David just turns the tables. He blows his doors off. This has to be too good to be true. He comes in thinking this is it. Game over. And David says, oh no, we're just getting started. When I think about this, it makes me wonder how we approach God. Do we come into the room already assuming we know what he's going to say? I already know he's going to be disappointed with me. I already know he's got his list of all the things. I'm going to be rejected. This is going to be the end. We think, if God really saw me, if he really knew me, if he knew what I'd done, if he knew what I'm trying to hide, he would just send me away. And that's exactly what Mephibosheth expected. He was geared up for the worst. But David says, I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I'll restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Grace isn't something David feels and articulates. It becomes something that Mephibosheth can stand on and count on and live from every single day. In just a few verses, David calls Ziba back, that former servant, and he has Ziba and his whole family move in with Mephibosheth to take care of everything. Make sure this guy has everything he needs for the rest of his life. Don't miss what David's doing here. We get this wrong with grace all the time. Our culture loves to feel feelings, and we think it's the same. That the emotion of grace is the same as the expression of grace. David doesn't merely say, man, I feel sorry for you. I hope things get better. I'll be praying for you, and then send him off. That's not what he does. He restores the land. He provides. He restores his dignity. He gives him back a future. That's what love looks like, not just what love feels like. We all know the difference between sentiment and substance. It's the difference between, let me know if you need anything, and I'm bringing dinner by on Tuesday. Let me know what time to get there. Sentiment feels bad from far away. Substance, it steps in. In David's love, it was not greeting card sentiment. It had substance. It had land, and it had a future attached to it. And that matters, because grace isn't some vague affection or some warm feelings from afar. Grace doesn't work that way. Grace moves in. It gets closer and closer. It steps forward in very practical, tangible, costly ways. Mephibosheth had lost so much. He'd lost his father, his grandfather, his home, and safety and status. And David can't undo everything that's happened. He can't go back and stop the fall. He can't give him the years back, but he uses what he has to restore what he can. And that's how grace works. It doesn't pretend away the pain and what happened. It doesn't minimize. It doesn't say it wasn't that bad. What David puts on display here, with all its power and beauty and transformational potential, is the very best of what God is for us. David is just showing us the teeniest, tiniest glimpse into God's heart towards us. Because his grace is not vague affection. He is not looking at us from a distance saying, man, that's too bad. I hope they figure it out. God flips the script. He moves in closer and closer. He provides what we can't provide for ourselves. And even here in this story with David and Mephibosheth, the land is not the point of the story. The estate, the inheritance, that's not the main event because David's not finished yet. He said to him, you will always eat at my table. That's the part that really hits home. David could have restored the land and still kept him far off. He could have given him tons of resources and sent him on his way because I don't want you actually around. I can give you charity without closeness. He does so much more than just provide for Mephibosheth. He brings him near. Look at how verse 11 says it. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Have you ever walked into a crowded room and someone looked, oh, over here, I saved you a seat. You know what that feels like? Someone was thinking of you. You were expected. You were wanted. That is the picture here. Mephibosheth, he's not sneaking into the back of the room. The king has made a place with him as one of his kids. That's where this whole story has been going. That's why this story is so important, because it shows us life isn't about merely being spared. It's not about trying to grind it out and squeak by the best we can. It's about being welcomed to the king's table like a child. We are all a little like Mephibosheth because we all know what it's like to be helpless. All of us know what it is to carry shame, to not have the ability to fix ourselves, to have nothing in our hands that could possibly earn forgiveness or acceptance. We each know what it is to come before God afraid that if he really knew me, he'd send me away. And David shows us what the heart of our Heavenly Father is really like. If we've been seeing him through broken lenses, maybe today's the day to correct our vision. Because our Father isn't looking for a reason to keep you out. He has made a way to bring you in. He went to great lengths to be near you. Through Jesus, the Father seeks us and calls us by name. He says, don't be afraid. He restores what sin and shame have tried to take away. Through Jesus, the Father brings us home. He gives us a seat. He adopts us as sons and daughters. It's all grace. It's the essence of the Father's heart towards you. And on Father's Day, I know that word father, it can land differently for different people. For some of us, it's a beautiful word and it's full of terrific memories and goodness, but it's complicated. For others, it carries grief or frustration or pain. The very best of fathers and fatherhood, they are meant to introduce us to our incredible Heavenly Father, who is so much better than we could ever dream and has gone so much further than we could ever ask him to go. He doesn't define us by what happened to us. He doesn't leave us exiled at a safe distance. He brings broken people home and gives them a seat at his own table. The invitation today is to receive. Receive the Father's grace for you, his hesed for you. Hear him call you by name again. Hear him call you by name for the very first time. Believe him when he tells you not to be afraid. I've got a spot ready for you. Over here. I saved you a seat. Maybe this Father's Day, you need to receive. You need to accept that God's grace is for you too. You know, when that happens, when we receive God's grace and when it starts to become and rewrite the dominant story of our life, it starts to change the way we see things. It can change how we see everything, but it certainly changes how we see the people around us. People who have been brought near, they start noticing who's still far off. People who have received grace, they start to wonder, who around me needs to know there's room for them too? Maybe the question today is, who is the Mephibosheth in your life? Who's easy to overlook? Who's been pushed aside? Maybe it's someone in your family or at work or at school, your neighbor. Maybe it's someone that's at a distance because their story is so complicated. Or what they need is just so inconvenient. Or if they were around, it would cost me something. We're not supposed to fix everything. Even David couldn't fix everything. But we use what we have to restore what we can. I don't think you need to walk out of here with like a list of 10 things to do. Maybe just one name. One person you can see differently. One person you can move towards. One person you can let them know there's a seat for you too. I was thinking maybe the best way that we can receive and remember this, remember we've been invited to the Lord's table, is to remember that our seat in his family did not come cheaply. Jesus gave us our seat because he gave himself up fully. He lived a perfect life we never could. He died the death of the guilty we deserved. Jesus got what he didn't deserve so that ultimately we'd get what we don't deserve. Hesed. He gave his body and his blood was shed. He went to the cross so that people like us could be brought home, sons and daughters. And we're going to have communion in a moment. And when you take that bread, remember the body of Jesus given for you. And when you drink that little cup of juice, remember the blood of Jesus poured out for you. There are communion packets in the back of the room if you need one. You're invited to take your seat at the Lord's table. Let's have communion together.